Welcome into DC On Screen episode 409. I am your host, David C. Robertson. This is my co-host, Jason Goss.
Hello.
And today is a very special episode. We have a long-time listener to the show. Some of you may have heard of him. He's the Big Kahuna on a little show called Weird Medicine, which can be heard on XM 105, Sirius 206, and of course in podcast form, easily accessed at drsteve.com. This is Dr. Steve.
Hello, boys. Thank you for having me on. I'm actually very excited to be here.
Oh, thank you for coming, man. And listening all this time.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
I've never missed an episode.
We have.
Is that true? I'm pretty sure there were a few I wasn't there for.
No, it's awesome. I love to talk about DC and Marvel. I like you, Dave. I'm also a fan of Marvel stuff, too. But I am really rooting for the DCEU after all these years. You know, I'm way older than you guys. I'm 61. And I bought comics when they were 10 cents. And my mom would give me an allowance of 75 cents. And I thought I was rich because I could buy, 7 comics with that. And I remember running down, riding my bike to the Smoke Shop, which was the only place that sold comic books back then. And I remember being mad because they went from 10 cents up to 12 cents. That's how old I am. So.
Yeah, when you round that up, that's going to cost you at least one book a week, right?
That's right. And just the fact that I am living in a time where, the idea that Batman would be taken seriously and would have a film that actually was nominated for, had Academy Award nominations was just completely alien to us back then because we were weird and, you had to go to these weird places to buy comic books and stuff. And it's just
that part's still
so
true.
Amazing. Yeah, that
you
is
do
true.
have
That
to
is true.
wander through several Dungeons and Dragons active games to get to the counter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's still you almost have to sneak in and out with your comics.
I guess that's true. Well, it is really weird to see somebody
what's cool
my
now
age.
is being a nerd is in though, so you can hop up with your comic book shirts and your comic books in hand, and everyone's like, that's totally acceptable now. Yeah, back in your day, it was
Right.
You could actively get beaten up.
Yeah, but
And
at
I
the same
did.
time,
Yeah,
I did too. I did too, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was a kid, I used to be able to go to, and I'm the same age as Jason, maybe 1 year.
yeah,
plus,
you're
but,
like a year older. We keep forgetting that.
Yeah, I used to be able to go to any given supermarket, and there was a huge rack of comics.
Mm-hmm.
And sometime around 12 or 13, that disappeared. And I had to go to the comic book shop to do this stuff. So, and I was still getting beaten up.
The whole thing is unfair.
And comics were like $3 suddenly.
Yeah.
What the hell
And you
is
were
that
just
about?
old enough now to realize women didn't like you. Everything just turned on you at the same time, right?
Nah, I knew everyone didn't like me.
It was no
That's why I tried
surprise.
so hard on this show.
We just want friends.
Anyway.
Well, I was listening to your last show, and you guys and I do have one point of disagreement, and that's on The Dark Knight Rises. And I thought it might be interesting to talk about a couple of those things.
I have a few medically related Dark Knight Rises questions that we might be able to throw at you.
And I have a few medical questions that's not related to The Dark Knight Rises, but other DC movies.
Okay, awesome. Oh, that'd be great.
Who wants to start? Steve, you wanna bring us into why you disagreed with our Dark Knight Rises?
Well,
And we have a pretty solid stance on hating that movie.
Yes, you do, and I'm not. It's my least favorite of the three, but I don't hate it as much as you guys did. And I look. I know it's stupid that they didn't check under the hood when they put the Bane on the plane. Oh, spoiler alert, by the way. But
Yeah. We're doing you a favor, is what
that-
we've always felt if we've spoiled this movie
Right.
for you.
I thought that first segment on the plane was one of the coolest action sequences I've ever seen, and
I agree on that.
I just
I do.
love
Sure.
that.
I mean-
But the thing about Bruce stopping being Batman for 10 years or however long it was, he didn't do it because of Maggie Gyllenhaal. As a matter of fact, he didn't choose her when he chose he chose Gotham over her. And I think at the end of that, they said, look, I'm going to take the hit for being the bad guy here and ruining Harvey Dent, and he had to go away just to allow Harvey's memory to inspire people in Gotham. That's the way I took that. I didn't take it that, Rachel didn't love him as much as she loved Harvey, so he quit. And that made a lot more sense to me.
It's definitely like it's the best interpretation I think of it is what you're talking about, but it still felt more like when you're watching him just play Robin Hood up in his mansion. I mean, food being slidden under the door. It was just it's a sad sight that we didn't expect any time out of that character.
Well, my argument has always been that he quit because Rachel died, not because she chose Harvey, because he didn't know she chose Harvey until well after he had been hanging around in corridors in Wayne Manor for 8 or 9 years.
Right.
And Alfred was like, by the way, sir, I had a letter. I had a letter, and it said she did not choose you, so get your ass out of the house.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think he chose Gotham over everything, and my interpretation of that was that he felt he had to hang up the cowl to allow Gotham to look for a more inspirational, hero, and he only came back when he felt like that wasn't working. But anyway, that's a minor point. I know you guys have a point about the backbreaking thing, and tell me what your issue is, and maybe from a medical standpoint we can talk about that.
It seemed like the moment medicine was introduced to The Dark Knight Rises, the movie started to deteriorate for me.
With Thomas Lennon.
Yeah, with Thomas Lennon, one of the funniest people on the planet. Why would you do that? That man reeks humor. Why would you add that to the scene? I don't understand. But, like the moment they strap on that stupid little knee thingy that I don't, please tell me if there's any reason to believe that could be a reasonable procedure for getting back 8 years of busted cartilage.
No, of course not.
I'm a layman, but that one didn't seem like it was going to hold together.
There was, I think there was something in the comic books where he had a knee brace where there were servo motors in it or something like that it's kind of cybernetically enhanced him when he injured himself. I can't remember, but that would be the only thing that would make any sense, and that's 20, 30 years in the future where we would have something that would actually enhance your performance rather than impede it.
Yeah,
so
and even the thing they put on his
malarkey.
knee, it looks less professional than that crap Brett Favre sells on paid for the only on TV stuff, that copper whatever it is.
Right. Yeah, and if you can enhance healing with electrical charges and things like that, you would have a prolonged period of physical rehabilitation that went along with that. Though, if we had something you could just slap on someone's knee and put them right back in the big game again, you would already know about it. So that's a plot device.
I mean, the NFL's probably working on that right now, but it's just not there yet.
Absolutely, of course, yeah.
But yeah, that was where it started to kind of get a little creepy, and then talking earlier, you said you did have some explanation for the impromptu pit surgery that repaired his spine.
Absolutely. Look, here's the thing. You guys were talking about on your show that you have a good explanation for the Pa Kent death in Man of Steel. If you could make feel good for me, because that drives me crazy. My impression, and take a quick detour, my impression of Pa Kent's death is it always served Superman to show him that there were things, it didn't matter how powerful he was, there were things he couldn't stop.
Yeah.
The heart attack of Pa Kent when he just keeled over and died. That was something that Clark...
It's that old line, for all my powers, I couldn't help him and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of his personality. And then when it's just him standing under this bridge, and Pa just goes, well, I'm just going to walk into this tornado, son, and Superman does nothing about it, just watches it happen. That drives me crazy. Now, if you could make me feel good about that, I think I can help with the Batman backbreaking thing.
Well, all right. See, Dave has never quite agreed with me on this, so I'll try. Because when we did our Man of Steel review, basically it was we did it as pretty much the most antagonistic premise we've had to a show, I guess, because we did it with I was going to try to defend it, and then he was going to give his basic review of it, which was, I mean, to sum up Dave's review, it's pretty much I like it, but there's some serious stuff going on here.
Right. Had beautiful moments.
Oh, gorgeous moments. And
Absolutely.
Of course it was a Snyder film, so it was gorgeously shot. It looked fantastic. And the one thing that me and Dave completely agree on in that film is that scene about the busboy, when he's a busboy and he throws the telephone lines through that guy's truck. Cut it. Absolutely. Right. There's no justification whatsoever for that.
Agreed.
But the closest I've ever gotten, and this is this explanation has not garnered me a lot of favor in some circles, but I'll try.
Okay.
Well, hold on, jumping back. To be fair, the telephone poles through the truck was probably the film's only comedic beat.
It's probably true, yeah.
So
yeah, but I think after that, didn't they start? Was it they had just stopped playing Chris Cornell, or just started after that? I'm not sure, but either way,
I think they started right after.
Right
it,
after.
But,
it's oh, look at this funny thing. Now here's Soundgarden.
Now take Seattle.
Lest you were going to have a chuckle. All right, here's my best shot. My explanation for why that scene makes any sense whatsoever, if it can be called an explanation, is in the story. First of all, we have to all face the fact that Pa Kent in this story infamously says, well, maybe he shouldn't have saved that bus of kids. He's so afraid of what the world is going to think of this boy that he's taken on that he actively tells him not to be special the entire time.
Right.
So, in all fairness to Pa Kent, whether that was a good strategy or not, he went out, he died for it. Apparently, he did believe in it. So, at that last moment when he nods Clark off, he sticks to his guns about no, don't show him, not even for me, don't show him who you really are. Yeah. So, at least he sticks to his guns, and I'll give him that. Now, I don't necessarily agree that that's the best way to raise Superman, but the part that salvages the scene for me is Pa Kent, when he runs back in, it's for the family dog. And I like the idea that he's showing Clark in his very human way, that every single creature is going to need help at some point, and it should be worth risking your life to go save that creature. And it's going to be a very important lesson for, this demigod that he's raising. Because he could very easily, turn all injustice gods among us on us.
Sure. Of course.
And not kind of, not take that value. And to me, it does kind of serve the purpose of Pa Kent still getting to kind of, through his death, show his son, just like in the books, you're not going to be able to save everybody, including me sometimes.
Right.
That's kind of the closest I can get you to feeling good about
okay,
that.
I'm going to watch it again. That might help some. The issue of Pa Kent's decisions as far as his parenting, that's not an issue, because I think that's a decision a lot of fathers would make if they had a kid.
Yeah, I think if you took a Gallup poll or something, you're going to have a way higher percentage than you'd think on who's going to keep their kid wrapped up.
I think that's a reasonable. Just as far as a filmmaking thing, that was the one sort of false note that I saw in that movie, was that just wouldn't have happened that way. But I'll watch it again and see if that helps. So now, let's talk about the back-breaking thing. So what were the issues that you guys had with regard to Bane breaking Bruce's back and him coming back from this grievous injury?
Well, I don't think they ever actually said that his back was broken as it was in Nightfall.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing he had an out-of-place vertebrae? Is that going to be the plot twist?
Right.
But the part that bothered me even about that is I wondered, is it vertebrae normally pop out the back? I don't know how many different ways you can dislodge a vertebrae, but he definitely pops him on the side.
Right.
I mean, he breaks him over his rib side. It's so I wondered first, can a vertebrae get dislodged that way? And then can it be pulled back?
Right. So the vertebral column is a very complicated set of bones that interlock with each other, and then it's straddled by lots of tissue and muscle that holds it in its shape very well. Now, I have a thing called spondylolisthesis, and what that is the as opposed to the balsa wood blocks. If you think of the spinal column as a set of balsa wood blocks sitting on top with a jelly donut between each one, and if you put a lot of axial pressure, in other words, pressure from above and below, just squishing down on the on the spinal column, those jelly donuts will tend to bloop out, and most of the time they will bloop out forward to where that they put pressure on the nerves as they come out of the spinal column. And that causes sciatica. The people say, I have a slip disc. That's what they're talking about. I have spondylolisthesis, which is where one of those vertebral bodies is actually jutted out over the other one that doesn't sit right on top. And that causes a different kind of back pain, but it doesn't cause the problems that he had. And yes, I think it would be, it's a chiropractor's dream to see this happen on a movie because, they love that. It's, yes, go to the chiropractor.
Validation. Yeah.
Exactly. But I have a different explanation for this, that I think that Bruce Wayne had a conversion disorder. It's also called a functional neurological symptom disorder, and it's a condition where you show psychological stress in physical ways. And I think that Bane destroyed him not only physically but mentally, and he ended up with a conversion disorder. Conversion disorder, you think of people faking. They're not faking. They actually have the real symptoms. I had a kid once. Well, let me say I heard about a patient that had a doctor that had a kid once that couldn't walk. And all of the neurologic tests showed a completely intact neurological system. And I had this idea. This friend of mine had. I'm trying to be careful not to violate HIPAA. This was 40 years ago, so really, I don't think it's an issue. But anyway, I think we're good. But this patient was told, sometimes people just get better. And it just happens all of a sudden, miraculously. It just happens. And we told her that just to give her an out, because up until that point, everybody was accusing her of faking. And the more people accused her of faking, the worse her condition got. But when we gave her this out that sometimes miraculously people get better, 2 days later she was up walking. So I have a funny feeling that Bruce Wayne needed the whole experience in the pit and all of the stuff that they did to him to get his brain right, to get over this conversion reaction, that it was actually a psychological damage rather than a physical damage. And he certainly had physical damage. Bane beat the crap out of him.
Yeah, I mean, he broke the mask on him. It's
Yep.
If you physically beat the cow into submission, that's going to be a thing. But
right.
I was actually way more surprised that his cheekbones weren't crushed in.
Right. Or that he still has a full set of perfect pearly whites.
Christian Bale teeth. Yeah.
How could that happen? But
yeah.
But I think if you look at Nolan's ideas about Batman and just sort of the psychological damage that was done to him through the Harvey Dent thing, through the Rachel thing, with just dealing with the Joker and then going away and then drinking too much and not being sure that he really needed to be in that in that suit again, and then Bane just deconstructed him, makes the most sense to me that it was a conversion reaction. But that's my take on it anyway. And then
I like that way more than
his mental health got better.
Yeah, especially once
I think
the other mental health. Middle blockage was getting up and out of that cave. Like, you have to take the rope off to get out. That's the trick.
Right.
Also bothered me a little bit because that rope's tied in a way where that would just rip your spine right back out of place. I think if you did follow that rope on.
Right. Yeah, really kind of doesn't work that way. Those tissues kind of settle in, and it's if you have a dislocated shoulder, you can pop it back in. When you get an extruded disc, it just doesn't pop right back in again. But, and look, his mental health got so much better that he was able to withstand a nuclear bomb and retire, with his girlfriend. So
yeah, I don't know what yoga position actually helps do that, but that was another major concern of ours, was like, no, we love Batman, but he cannot outrun physics. No.
Right.
No.
Nolan just didn't want to kill him. That's all that was.
Yeah. He wanted that cute scene in the cafe.
Right. So anyway, that's my theory.
I have a historical fun fact for you about that. The entire field of psychiatry got started because of conversion disorder. If you've ever looked it up, Sigmund Freud was a neurologist at one point, and for all the stuff he got wrong, he at least got the conversation going. But he had a patient come in with conversion disorder, And it confused him so deeply on a neurological level that he had to posit the idea of the dualistic mind-brain and look into the mind.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you can't separate the mind from the body, that's for sure.
He had to finally admit that there was something going on up there that wasn't immediately explainable.
Yeah.
Fun facts.
What else you got?
Well, you had some...
You have more?
You had a few non-Nolan questions, right, Dave?
I did, but I do want to point out that I'm pretty sure that is the real magic of Christopher Nolan. He makes nonsensical films that people can sit around and fan theory about.
Yeah.
That's true.
And then they're like, "Hey, Nolan, is that right?" And he kind of just shrugs. He's like, I don't know,
I
maybe.
don't know. I hope so.
Leaves out just enough storytelling where you have to posit that there was maybe a bat plane hidden under that portion of desert just in case, so he could somehow walk back to Gotham from the Middle East.
Back to right. Well,
Yeah.
And I know. Look, I'm hijacking your show because you guys just did a whole show on this last week, but I am fascinated.
Well, this is
with the whole thing.
In terms of response and feedback to our shows, it's pretty solid. I think it beats a tweet any day.
Yeah, they. And Nolan isn't known for making movies that necessarily make sense either. And Jason and I were talking about this, David, that you know the concept of reductio ad absurdum, right? And that's where you can use it in math, where you posit something that isn't true, and then you can prove that it isn't true because it leads to an absurd result, like 1 = 2, something like that. There's a lot of mathematical proofs that use that.
Right.
And when you have someone that's defying the laws of physics, and this doesn't apply so much to Batman, but to Superman particularly, someone that can fly without exerting any energy, that can shoot beams out of his eyes, although it doesn't seem to deplete any sort of energy source. When you have that as a premise of a film, you will logically have plot holes that can't be filled because of this process of reductio ad absurdum. And the filmmaker's genius, if they can pull it off, is to always skirt around those things so we don't have too many plot holes that take us out of the movie. Mm-hmm. And I do think Snyder's been pretty good at that over time.
When they let him air the entire movie, he's great at it. When they cut out 30 minutes so they can put more butts in seats and increase their sales.
Don't even get me started about the Ultimate Edition. That's the film that should have been released from the beginning.
And we've explained this over and over again, but that's exactly the reason. It's 2.5-hour movie versus 3-hour movie. You put more people in the seats over the weekends. You win more weekends that way, they thought. They didn't realize, oh, no, it's going to cost us 70% the next weekend because the film doesn't make sense anymore.
Right. It's Batman v Superman. 3 hours is probably okay.
Yeah. It's two of the major...
People would have sat there. They would have loved it.
Well, let's put it this way. Batman and Superman, same film. Two of the most iconic characters in American history. Two of our greatest national exports, if you look at GDP. And you're telling me both of those characters aren't worth an hour and a half? Let's get it done, guys.
Right.
Yeah.
That was a big mistake.
You got Luthor in there just to round it out even.
Agreed. Yeah.
And all we got to walk away when we watched the theater, in the theater version, all we got to walk away with was, well, Wonder Woman works.
Well, I walked away saying that was one of Snyder's best films ever. I still thought the original version was pretty darn good, and it had, even if you just take it as a string of beautiful moments, the Martha Kent rescue, I will argue, is the best Batman scene ever filmed.
Yeah, the best Bat fight scene, I think. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone within reason would argue that. That'd just be silly. But even then, walking away from that movie, it made sense to me. But I was actually really happy when I saw the Ultimate Edition. How much of the headcanon I'd put in was actually
agreed.
They'd filmed it. That was part of the movie. We just didn't get to see it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible when you take out a whole big chunk of the narrative, how much sense the movie won't make afterward.
Yeah, and then completely rearrange certain parts.
Sure. I mean, KG Beast was in the whole movie.
Yeah, and so was that lady he killed.
Right.
What's weird is I actually did. I took the opposite on that. I said it's amazing how much this movie made sense when they took all this stuff out. They actually did a pretty decent job of shoving it all together.
Yeah. For what they had to work with, yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That's it.
You're saying,
Yeah, like
even given all the stuff they took out, it made pretty good sense despite the interference.
yeah, like when it was just the theatrical cut, I'm like, that's a pretty good Nolan movie. Even though Nolan didn't do it, but that's a pretty good Nolan movie.
Yeah.
And then I come back to it with the Ultimate Edition and went, oh, that's a movie
That's a great
now.
Snyder movie. Awesome. I see the difference.
I'm really pumped for Justice League, and I think that Joss Whedon was a good choice. I really think that he is going to. I think he's a good enough friend that he's just going to realize Snyder's vision on this thing.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to come.
I'm not worried at all that he's going to put his own stamp on this.
Nah,
other than
I don't.
Just
Whedon's got so much cred in general at this point. He doesn't need to prove himself. There's nothing like that going on. I think.
Yeah,
he'll just finish making a good film. Is hopefully what we're going to see.
Yep.
And
that's my hope.
It's Whedon too. I would challenge someone to find me a product that he made worse. Like that, an ongoing challenge. Please find me one thing Whedon put his hands on and didn't make it better.
Well, last couple of weeks, a lot of people have been complaining about his Wonder Woman script.
That thing went through some serious rewrites too. I don't know.
Yeah, they're saying he is really sexist, and they're taking out. I haven't read the thing, so I wouldn't know.
It's also like you mentioned that, and I wanted to. Well, that's kind of what I was hinting at. Is like I want to know how many people put their hands on it after he had written by in the credits before I really blame him for any of that.
I don't know, but the stuff that I read, the few little excerpts that I read, it didn't seem, I don't know, egregious by any stretch. Like, yes, he mentions her being sexy, but, I don't know what there is about feminism that says that a woman can't be sexually attractive.
Yeah, I don't think it's one of the tenets necessarily.
Yeah, so, I don't know.
It's very much a how you approach it kind of thing, but...
But mostly the people I've seen complaining about it also, hated Buffy and Firefly because it's, quote, fake feminism. So I don't know what to do with that. But, there are people who shit on Whedon. So
I mean, I know they're out there. I don't expect for my mind to be changed about it.
Oh yeah, my mind won't be changed. I don't give a shit.
I'm open to opinions, but I'm not seeing that one going anywhere.
Yeah, I'm a bit worried about Justice League, to be honest. I don't know. I refuse to look at it through rose-colored glasses or anything and be like, this is going to be great. He'll do it to the letter. I'm like, wait, Elfman's coming in? Wait, what's happening?
Yeah. Well, a lot of the news, though, has been positive. Like, Elfman, yes, that sounds great. Whedon,
yeah,
great. Sounds good. Yeah. I mean, I would have been happy with Snyder finishing it, too, but...
I was just going to say, Pee-wee's Big Adventure is one of the best soundtracks ever made.
Yeah.
Really is. Yeah. Genius. I think Danny Elfman will be just fine.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy, though, is he was plucked off the streets to do that soundtrack and did just fine. I think he was like a rock and roll singer, and Tim Burton saw him one day and was like, hey, would you like to do a score? So, yeah, sure, I guess I'll give that a shot. And then he turns out to be one of the most iconic scoresmen, I'll call him, out there.
Yep. Yeah, he was in Oingo Boingo. Mm-hmm. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Why not?
Well, anyway, you guys got some other medical questions for me? I don't get to do this stuff enough on my show. For people who don't know, I have a show called Weird Medicine on SiriusXM, and Riotcast Network is the podcast version. And I always have to answer real medical questions, and and it's really fun answering superhero medical questions if I can. I've always wanted to be a medical advisor on one of these movies because I will guarantee you, the people that they either don't listen to them or they're idiots. And,
I think it's a combination. That's always been my suspicion. Yeah. It's a combination. Those people do want to get paid, and it's not like they're actually risking anyone's health by fudging a little bit. So when the producer says, like, do you think this is possible? I don't know. Could you tell me this is possible? Yeah, sure.
Sure.
Say whatever you want. Send me another check.
With being a celebrity physician, these guys like Dr. Nick and the guy that was Michael Jackson's physician don't want to say no to him because they want to still be part of their thing.
Yeah.
And it makes it very difficult to just draw a line and tell them up. And the way to do it, I am a I do a concierge practice myself, and the way to do that is to draw the line up front. But I'm sure that the medical advisors in these films and TV shows, just as you said, have the same issue. As if they say no too many times, they're afraid they're going to lose their job.
Oh, they will, absolutely. I mean, we're talking about when you get a certain level of celebrity, you really do get to the point where if someone doesn't tell you what you want, you can just go to the next person, and they will.
Yeah. But on a film, I think, for me, I'm just putting it out there. If there's anybody listening that does this sort of thing, that I would always come up with an alternative way that was creative, that would work medically and within the realm of possible, physics and chemistry to make to make their idea work. But anyway, that's my plug for my medical
some of these
advisor
films.
job.
I could swear that in the writer's room, there's just a big plaque that says "fuck physics." Like it's just something you walk in and look at every day and think, "Yep, screw those guys, it's bobbins."
Well,
All right, so I sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, if it works for the story, it's fine. I mean,
Yeah.
Green Lantern makes no sense from a physical standpoint, but it's always one of my favorite comics.
But yeah, it's a great character.
Sure. The Speed Force is the most asinine thing that I've ever heard from a scientific standpoint, but I love the Flash.
But from a writing standpoint, it's friggin' brilliant. 'Cause
yes,
you create
it's
an
awesome.
entire other branch of physics that you can just fuck with now.
Right, that we just don't know about it.
Yeah, or even like when they early on, like in the early 40s, they had to add the yellow sun to Superman's canon.
Right.
They had to explain some things, and they had to give him like a couple of weaknesses, so they started adding like kryptonite and yellow sun and stuff. And
Sure.
that was also that was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant.
Yep. Right. Also makes zero sense.
None.
But who cares? It's just what it is. So you set up these postulates and you work with it. Euclid did the same thing. He had his set of postulates, and out of that came all of geometry. You set up, and you can set up crazy postulates. They did that where two parallel lines never meet, and then that becomes hyperbolic geometry. So you have a guy that is super strength, has super strength in the presence of a yellow sun, and has weaknesses to minerals from his exploded planet. Discuss, and then you come up with stories that fit those postulates. And as long as you don't vary too far and try to make it too real world, it actually works. It works beautifully. I mean,
and even one of my favorite stories, Superman stories, is All-Star Superman, where they take the it's almost the RAA for what happens with the energized cells.
Yeah, beautiful story. That was Grant Morrison, right?
Yeah. I mean, if
I love
if
his
it's
stuff.
good enough, you can just guess it's Grant Morrison and go from there.
Yeah.
Just
And that's
work your
one way to
It's
do
like if you
Superman.
hear a really good song that's been covered a lot, just assume it's Dylan and work backwards.
That's right. If that's one way to do Superman, you could try to do it in a hyper real way, or you can do it like Grant Morrison did in All Star Superman. And anybody that's listening to this, if you haven't read it, go read it right now. It's sort of a more fantasy Superman, and it works really, really well. And
That'll take care of our
kinda
quota.
almost-
It's usually about once every 3 months or so we end up accidentally imploring everyone to go read that story. So
Yeah.
that should take care of us for the summer. Somewhere in the fall, we'll come back and pester them more.
Very good.
I think a CBR does a running article, and they were just talking about, and it had reminded me of a story where someone implied that it might be the reason kryptonite might actually hurt Superman is because it absorbed all of the screams of everyone on Krypton, and it was actually sound waves
Oh,
That's funny.
that was
I love that.
like dissipating him. Yeah, it's a really cool thought, and it was whatever it was, whoever wrote it, I don't remember now. It was the story of the second Green Lantern of Krypton, because there are 2 Green Lanterns per sector, and years ago, they told the story of the Green Lantern who failed to save Krypton, and then much more recently they brought up like, oh, by the way, there are 2. Okay, well, we need a story to tell that. Where was the other guy? Here's his story, where
heck.
he comes to Metropolis and asks Superman to end his misery and to kill him, because only Superman can be the one who's the last Krypton survivor. And it was a really good Really good bit.
That's a neat story.
Wow. Well, you put a link to that on the show notes because I want to read that.
I'll put a link to both. I'll try to find them again. It's just one of those
That
things I come
sounds
across,
awesome.
and yeah,
Well, that's just I love when writers do that. They just come up with a natural consequence of the canon. Well, there had to have been a Green Lantern over there. What the heck happened to Krypton's Green Lantern? And then just make a story from that. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that is nice.
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
So
You got Dave. You got a couple of. I do
Yeah.
have like a couple more general ones whenever you're ready.
okay. Do you remember what McGregor syndrome is, Steve?
Oh my goodness. No, but I can become an expert in it in 2 seconds.
It wouldn't be
I
worth
mean,
the 2
it's-
seconds.
It's not worth the 2 seconds. This is, I guess technically it first came about in 92 on the animated series, but they never really named it. They named this thing McGregor syndrome after Peter McGregor Scott, who was a producer on Batman and Robin. That was Mr. Freeze's wife's disease, Nora Freeze.
Okay.
And they didn't really define it, other than to say that, her stage was a later stage. Alfred's stage was stage 1, which he had already cured. And I actually, in preparation for the question, looked up some stuff about this. And the Arrowverse has adopted the McGregor syndrome. And I had not realized that. It had just gone right over my head when we watched the show. But William Talkman, the Clock King,
Right,
he
the
has
Clock
it.
King was one of them that had it.
And Francine West.
I saw that
Had
as
it.
well. Yeah, known
Oh.
sufferers of
Yeah.
the disease include Francine West, Nora Freeze, the Clock King, and Alfred Pennyworth.
Uh-huh. And apparently, as the Wikipedia entry denotes, is a genetic defect that causes fluid buildup in the lungs, which leads to oxygen deprivation and multi-system organ failure, known to affect ex-drug addicts. Now, is all of that medically sound? I'm curious about that. Also, does this mean that Alfred is an ex-drug addict?
Right.
I do like the
Well,
version where he like spent 10 years following the Ramones and shooting heroin.
Well, actually, it made me wonder if the entirety of, we could just retcon Forever and Batman and Robin right into, some sort of drug-induced fever dream for Alfred.
That'd be great. That'd be a good
I
out.
love that.
That'd be a good out.
Chronic opioid abuse and other, but particularly opioids. So those are the things that are derived from the opium poppy, like morphine, heroin, crocodile, that kind of stuff. They do
That was particularly nasty.
that is particularly nasty. And if people aren't aware of that, what it is crocodile is a potent form of an opioid that it uses red phosphorus to convert, I believe, codeine into a more potent form. And they can't get the red phosphorus out of it. And so when you inject it, it causes a really severe skin reaction that thickens the skin and makes it scaly and looks like crocodile skin.
At some point, it
it's
starts to
very
actually
caustic.
fall off.
But it's dirt cheap, and that's why it was really favored in Russia at one time.
Still
And,
pretty high in there.
Yeah, and when you start buying pharmaceutical grade drugs off the street, they're very expensive, and if you lose your job and your habit gets to the point where you can't afford your drugs anymore, you start going to cheaper alternatives, and one of those is crocodile. And I'm surprised they haven't made some comic book reference to that, where somebody's addicted but also a supervillain at the same time with some kind of weird skin. But this disease may be an opioid caused immunodeficiency. So there are people who will have decreased immune syndrome or symptoms. Decreased immune system from using chronic narcotics, and it can cause malignancies, certain cancers, and if you shoot yourself up enough with a needle and you're not careful, you can get an infection in your heart called infective endocarditis, which also will cause fluid buildup in the lungs, which leads to oxygen deprivation and multisystem organ failure. So you could say that McGregor syndrome is simply chronic infective endocarditis, which is an infection of the structures of the heart with bacteria caused by IV drug use. So, you could come up with a corollary of that. But yeah, there's no other syndrome that I can think of that even comes close to what they're talking about.
Well, did they? I thought the Wikipedia also mentioned it was congenital. It was gene related. But is it just gene related and life activated, maybe, or?
Well,
something that's inevitable gene
everybody's
portion?
different, and we are a product of our genetic heritage. And there are some people who can drink alcohol their whole life and never become alcoholics. There are some people that can drink one drink and they become, well, you said that. And some people who can drink one drink and immediately are addicted. And that probably is genetic. So there might be, you could posit that there was some genetic predisposition to whatever this particular syndrome is, but they just made it up. But there are some things in real life that are close to that.
This is you've probably put more thought into it in just that than they did all three of the series that use this.
Of course.
Maybe combined. So next time the writers are looking to use that, I hope they at least refer back and maybe stumble upon our podcast and be like, oh, crap, he already did the writing for us. This is great.
I'd be happy to help them out.
Yeah.
I love this kind of stuff.
All right, so in your medical adventures, moving backwards in the DC movie canon, in your medical adventures, how often would you say you've been or you've encountered resurrection from cats gnawing at a person's fingers?
Once, twice a month, shows up at the hospital, maybe.
They brought that back in Gotham as well. When the clone Bruce, is it okay to talk spoilers at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When clone Bruce threw Selena out the window and then you saw the cats coming up and licking her, they didn't resurrect her and change her into a different person exactly, but it was sort of it was a callback to that scene.
It was definitely a callback, but thank God they went with the slightly less ridiculous Poison Ivy's plants routine.
Right. And I like the whole Poison Ivy thing.
Yeah. The only thing, I actually got to like her a lot more, but I'm still every now and then I'm like, she's like 8. This just feels weird.
Oh, no. Well, okay. I have issues with what they did with her character because they just wanted an older, sexier Poison Ivy. But I did like the solution to Selena's problem was using Ivy's plants. But it also means she has the cure for all kinds of diseases, and she's just running around and going to end up being a villain. It's sort of like using Khan's blood in the which Star Trek movie? The one with
Into Darkness.
Yeah, Into Darkness with Benedict Cumberbatch. Yeah. Now they have the cure for everything. They could just use Khan's blood. No one should ever fear death ever again in the Star Trek universe, except they're just going to completely forget about it.
Yeah.
They'll never use that again.
They also forgot about teleportation somewhere during that movie.
Right. That too.
No.
But
no one should fear death inside of the Abrams Star Trek universe, because death will bring you relief from the Abrams Star Trek universe.
Wow.
With the sole exception of the one they finally let Simon Pegg write.
Yes. Beyond was really good, I thought.
But this is another one of those things where, like, you bring me something that Simon Pegg made worse. I dare you. I'm not saying all of his movies have been fantastic. I've seen all of them.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
He's very engaging.
I saw... I saw Beyond. I was like, oh my gosh, this was actually really good. And then, like, all the clickbait headlines were like, Star Trek makes a pro-Trump thing. I'm like, oh, shit.
I don't remember it.
How?
They got to tear me down.
I didn't see
that. No
that.
matter what, they're tearing me down.
I didn't catch that at all, no.
Oh, yeah. That was just all. I didn't read the articles. I was just, nope, you're not going to ruin this for me.
Now, that one in particular, like, they finally let someone who, had Star Trek posters up on his walls when he was a kid write the film, rather than just hiring a writer who knows a little bit about Star Trek. Mm-hmm. You just get a different product that way.
Yeah. I was happy that Damon Lindelof was out of this picture.
Yeah. He's back in another one. We'll be covering that tomorrow.
Have you guys talked about that yet? I know you have. Because I heard about it on your show. I used to despise that guy, but after watching The Leftovers, I'm all in. I want to see what he can do with that. You know, the one thing that Damon Lindelof is good at, and I wanted to punch him in the face after Prometheus, but he is really, really good at little vignettes about people's backstory and stuff. That was what Lost was all about. You know, and
he is really good at that.
He's so good at that, and the grief and loss that they were able to portray on The Leftovers. If you haven't seen that, it was a great show, and it's got a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's just 3 seasons, and so I'm actually interested to see what he's going to do with this Watchmen thing.
Yeah.
All right, I'm actually curious to know, and you can give me the spoiler on it. If Jason doesn't care, on The Leftovers, did he actually not let us know what this whole rapture thing was about?
No, they said.
Did they ever explain that?
No, he did. They said they weren't going to, and then they changed their mind. And what they came. So this is why I'm on his team again, because he finally figured out how to write an ending for something.
Okay. Then I don't want the spoiler.
Okay,
then I don't want
I'm
the
not
spoiler.
going to spoil it, but I'll just tell.
Eject.
Because I saw like the first 4 or 5 episodes of this thing, and then Lindelof came out, and I loved Lost, but I was a little iffy on the ending. I wound up liking it a lot more than I initially did.
Me too.
But one of my big things that I always had an issue with Lindelof was that he was like, "Oh yeah, you can't give away the mysteries. That way, when people go back and watch it, they can still talk about it." I'm like, "No, I don't want that shit.
Right.
I want the actual thing. I
That's
want to know
kind of
what
a
happened.
cop-out.
I don't."
It's a cop-out to just say, "Oh well, I'm never
absolutely
going
a
to tell you."
cop-out. Yeah, don't give me some Sopranos bullshit.
Oh God. Never been more mad.
So, you know, right when The Leftovers came out, though, I watched about 4 or 5 episodes, and then he came out and said, "Oh, we're never going to talk about. We're going to do what the book did, and we're never going to talk about where all these people went." And I went, "Oh no, I don't have time for this shit."
I'm telling you, dude,
I'm done.
they totally did, and it was very satisfying. And
Okay,
it completely changed my opinion.
And Dave
Yes,
has something
Jason.
to do this summer.
Yeah, like abort. No spoilers.
Yeah. On the other hand,
I
like
think a lot
watched,
of people checked out when he said that, though. So maybe that's why.
I somewhere around there, I watched like 1 episode of Lost, and then Dave explained the ending to me, and my entire, just to sum it up, basically, I kind of went, "Oh, I'm glad I stayed out of that." I mean,
now I don't have to watch it.
Yeah, I was like, I thought it was one of those I might go back and do one day, and then Dave told me what the ending was. I was like, "Oh, well, you just saved me so much time. Thank you."
Well, that is the definition of why spoilers suck.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but he told me he wanted it.
Yeah, no, I mean,
that's all right.
I intentionally went out for, and me and Dave have gotten a good enough, rapport over the years about knowing when to spoil something for somebody. Like, dude, I'm about to save you a lot of time. You want to hear what happens? Like, okay, good call.
Sure.
Thanks, man. That's going off the Netflix.
I'll tell
queue. I
my
appreciate
friends
it.
it's okay to tell me. I'll never watch it. Just tell me.
Yeah.
And then I love
That's
I love what you guys do is you will spoil stuff that you just don't want people to waste their time with, and I do appreciate.
We still give you the heads up. Like, hey, we've done this on the show a few times where it's like, all right, everyone, if you don't want to know the ending of the story, take 30 seconds off. Go just hit the 30 seconds button.
Right.
Sit there and look at a clock and be like, cool. All right, pop back into the show.
Yeah, I write spoilers for anything that's been released ever. Not just DC stuff, just everything. I just write it in the description so somebody can't be like, "Hey, you spoiled this." I'm like, it says it right there, man.
And
Spoilers.
I also like it's in the description. We say it at the front of all of our shows, and then
No, we don't. No, we
almost
don't.
all of
That's
our
a
shows.
lie.
No, that when
No,
we're
not
doing
even
reviews,
almost.
we say it.
I've stopped doing that completely. I've stopped doing that
Oh,
completely.
have you? That's right. We talked about that.
Your review shows
Yeah.
you do.
We
review
do
shows,
that
yeah.
on the review shows.
I remember that conversation now. But we something that I like though about it is that we actually review stuff late enough that you've had all week to get around to watching it. So I feel like it actually is late enough that we catch a few people that are like, "Oh, thank God, Saturday I can catch up on all my shows," and then they'll catch us on Sunday.
Yeah, there's whole blocks of your TV shows, and thank you for doing that too. Just while I'm just metaphorically, blowing you guys, but it's
We appreciate it.
when you do the DC stuff separate from the DCEU stuff, it allows me to skip the shows that I'm behind on and then come back and catch up with them later. Other shows just mush it all in, and then it's like, oh, hell, I wish I hadn't heard that.
Yeah.
And I really do appreciate that you guys, it's incredible. You guys are the hardest working people in podcasting. I don't know how many podcasts you have out there, but, to do a show for every single DC TV show that's on and cover it and do a quick review and all that stuff. It's really awesome, and I really do appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. It's about to get so much worse too. You know that, right?
Yeah, we're gonna have to change the way we do it, honestly.
We're gonna have to take a look at it. Well, something like we've toyed with the idea of maybe dropping Lucifer or something like that, just to give ourselves a fighting chance at getting Black Lightning back in the picture. And
right,
yeah, we've still got a Teen Titans thing in the works. Young Justice is supposed to make a return. There's a whole WB network that's about to open up that we're gonna have to go pay to stream that, and God only knows what they're gonna include there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
we're living in the golden age. Look at this.
Krypton.
There's so much that you guys are thinking of having to cut back on it. Now think about that for a minute.
Even when we started a couple years ago, we thought, oh man, that's how are we going to keep the show going if these tiny handful of shows don't make it?
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That was our concern at the beginning.
Yeah, we were naive. We were naive. But one of the funniest pieces of feedback I think we've ever gotten on our shows, and people actually did appreciate once we started splitting them up like that they could do what you're talking about. Like you can go catch up on Netflix and go catch up on our shows if you wanted to. But you can call your shot a lot better with that. But something it cracks me up, and we've actually gotten a couple times, is thank you guys for doing the Lucifer reviews. I keep listening to them. I'm not actually watching the show. If you guys start saying good things, I'll go watch the show.
Right.
Like we're just taking the bullet for these guys.
You watch it. Just tell me what happened.
Just tell me if it starts to get good, and then we basically do like a 10-minute Lucifer review every week. That's like, well, it's still not good.
I highly recommend that everyone who hasn't read it go read the full run of Mike Carey's Lucifer. It's one of the best runs of any comic ever, I think. Actually made me cry a couple of times when I was reading it.
Oh, that's good.
That's never happened.
I have it. I have it somewhere, and it's one of those where I don't want to read it right now because it's just going to make me angrier at the show.
Right. The
same. Oh, the other problem with Sandman. I had the Sandman run somewhere. I don't remember where, but I don't want to read that because they're still working on that property, and I don't want to somebody's still developing that, so I want to give them time to do it.
Yeah.
Jason, just go read it. Listen, they're not going to be able to do 100th of what's in there.
Mm-hmm.
They really aren't going to. There's no way.
But they've talked about doing it on like HBO or Stars or whatever.
That's different.
I think they.
I
think they could.
Stars for a little while was going to develop it, and I think they might still, if American Gods numbers are doing really well, they might pick up another gaming property.
If they do Sandman on there, you realize, if you haven't read it, it starts with, it has Swamp Thing in it. It's got John Constantine in it. It's got William Shakespeare. This thing spans the ages. It's one of the greatest achievements in comic book history. I'm not going out on a limb by saying that.
There's a lot of people that agree with you.
Unbelievably great.
I would say it's one of the greatest literary achievements of at least of the last century.
I'm not even going to disagree with that in the slightest. It is a true literary achievement. The fact that it's in serial art shouldn't diminish it one bit in people's minds. And I'll guarantee you there's a whole bunch of kids out there that are now adults that their only exposure to Shakespeare was, the things where Sandman was back in time because he's immortal. He's experienced all of human history. Was influencing Shakespeare to write. Oh gosh, now I'm 61. I'm having one of those moments. Midsummer Night's whatever.
Dream.
Yeah, Dream.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We did that one in high school. I can still recall the title.
Kids these days at least had that episode of Doctor Who.
Yeah, at least that one episode of Doctor Who.
True.
Where Tennant just geeks out the entire time.
Yeah. It was a good episode.
It was a great episode. I loved it. Best part was when
do you guys have any news, or do you?
Like nothing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, do you guys have any news, or are you just going to let me ruin the whole episode?
No, we were just gonna screw around. We didn't have.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, this is.
We've got a news episode coming out tomorrow, or it'll be out Tuesday.
Okay.
We'll do it tomorrow. But then,
so we're going to get 2 podcasts this week. That's awesome.
it'll be 3 with the.
Well,
all
3. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say on that list of things. I'm meaning to read right now, and I can't suggest highly enough. And it's about to come back, like this afternoon. I think is season 2 airs. Preacher. Never read it.
Oh,
but the show is so freaking good. I don't want to I just don't want to. That's the same problem. But now it's. I don't want to ruin the show or the book. I'm just gonna let the show do its thing, and I've got all the time in the world to go back and read Preacher.
yeah, that's fair enough. Steve, that one angel looks exactly like a Steve Dillon character too. The Steve Dillon, the artist.
Oh.
There's a lot of sameness to the people, and that one angel with the kind of pointy face, like. I said they had to make him up to look like a Steve Dillon character.
Nice.
I'm one of the few people I think in the world who is. It's not bad, but I'm just. Yeah, Steve Dillon's characters all look the same to me.
They do.
They just do.
they
I don't know.
There,
right.
He said
I
it.
feel bad about it.
The only way you can tell
I
one.
don't kind of want.
Yeah, the only way you can tell one person from another is their hair color or the tattoo on their face or whatever. There's a real similarity in the way he draws people.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed Preacher. That was one of the ones I bought every comic, and then bought the trade paperbacks, and then turned around and bought the Prestige edition. They have got me figured out.
That's they got everything
That was
they
a
could
good
out
one.
of you. Yeah, and I've heard the books are just
Absolutely.
as good, but right now that television show is so good that I don't want to have extra expectations.
No, it's great. It's just crazy. It's so odd and insane.
Love
That's
it.
what I love it. Yeah,
it's
exactly.
so much
We just
fun.
don't see things like that.
No, I mean, like even the finale of season 1, I just didn't actually expect that to happen, and then loved it. I won't say for anyone who's catching up on Hulu right now. I'll spare.
Yeah, I need to do that. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, and like I said, I think season 2 started airing like today. I think it airs in a few minutes or whatever. So.
All right, Dr. Steve, I have another question for you.
Okay, man.
This time jumping back to 1966.
Okay.
What would you recommend for a patient who's dissipated into antimatter due to being rehydrated with heavy water from an atomic pile?
Well, that's a tough one, isn't it? That patient would be terminally ill in the real world, no question about that.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's no saving that person.
It does settle the
Batman
question
kicked the
of
guy.
even Adam West, Batman killed.
Yes.
Yeah,
well,
Batman kicked the guy and he was gone.
Yeah.
well, and how do you treat a guy who's got a shark hanging off his leg?
Well, shark repellent. That's obvious.
Right, of course. So
We don't know that.
I love that they never mentioned like the obvious like shark teeth marks that would be in Adam
of
West's leg.
course.
Right,
Well,
right.
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
If it could hang off of him, that thing was just,
Yeah.
shredding his flesh with its teeth as gravity was pulling it down, and Batman was trying to pull his leg out of its gaping
Yeah.
maw.
Well, luckily, the previous meal of that shark had just been like 2 bricks of sandpaper, so it didn't shred his even his silk costumes. Fine,
Yeah, it's amazing.
amazing, so
Very
lucky.
well made.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Even
Well,
when
I'm
I was
sure,
a
you know.
kid, because I saw that movie in the theaters when it first came out. Okay, that's how old I am. And even then, I was like, God, I really wish they'd take this seriously. I said, this is awesome, but I really wish they'd take this seriously. It wasn't until Tim Burton's Batman when I saw someone take Batman seriously. Except I did see the Batman serial when I was a kid. It was old then, but they would run it
43
Saturday
or whatever it
mornings.
was.
Yeah, something like it was really, really old.
Yeah.
But they would run it. I used to go to the theaters every Saturday. It was 35 cents to get in. And listen to me. Well, when I was a kid, I rode ponies to school. But it was 35 cents to get in, and they would run a serial before the main feature. And for weeks, they showed the Batman serial. It was so cool because you had to keep coming back to see what happened.
Yeah,
So that one kind of took
kind
it
of a
sort
feature I
of
almost miss. Like I'm surprised people aren't using that feature now just to get you into all the movies, like all of Pixar's movies. You have to see every one of them this year. You won't get this little story we tell at the beginning about the lamp.
Right. I am surprised that they're not doing that. That's a good point. I think people would get pissed.
Probably.
Yeah. Well, was it the 43 Batman serial with the white actor trying to portray rather racistly an Asian character, or was it
Yes.
Okay. All right. The 49
it was in black and white, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Lewis Wilson, I think it was, playing Batman.
Yep. Produced by, I'm just looking it up on, serial is based on the DC Comics character Batman. Really?
Yeah.
Involves Batman, a secret U.S. government agent attempting to defeat sabotage schemes of Japanese agent Dr. Daka operating in Gotham City at the height of World War II. I don't remember it being racist back then, but of course, in the late 50s, early 60s, that kind of sensitivity just wasn't on our radar screen, sadly.
I mean, when this thing was airing, there were internment camps actively happening. We were right smack in the middle of a lot. We'll just call it a lot.
Though, I recently I have it on DVD, of course, and I recently rewatched part of it, and it wasn't nearly as bad as I had remembered. Like, it's like, they obviously just didn't have an Asian actor there, but he wasn't, like, too over the top. Like, he was still trying to play it real. So, I mean, I was a little surprised by that, and a little impressed. Like,
wasn't as bad as Charlie Chan.
No, it was, it was bad, but it wasn't, the worst I've seen. It wasn't what everyone thought the Mandarin would be in the Marvel films, if they ever did it.
Yeah.
It wasn't Ming the Merciless by any stretch.
Oh, God.
Right.
Dear God.
I loved how the reviews of that serial said, there was a guy that reviewed it. His name was something Stedman. He said, the serial gained good press notices, but scarcely deserved them. One of the most ludicrous serials ever made, it said. So I've got to go back and watch that again. I literally have not seen that since I was 10 years old.
It's probably worth a good few laughs. I mean, I would advise a sidebar of scotch if you're going to do it.
There you go.
Yeah, I think that would be the way.
You should just go ahead and get the DVD set of the two serials, because they cost the same price as the two separately. So, just save yourself the money, get both the serials. The 49 serial is actually better. Batman and Robin with the Wizard is stupid. Like, it's not going to make any sense to you. It's like a cat in a hood in a cave, like, operating. He's got a better cave than Batman and Robin do, by the way.
Yeah.
But he's operating by remote control every car, every plane, whatever vehicle there is to operate. Like, and we don't know how he's doing it by remote. They never really explain it at all. It's just, okay, this guy has a machine
that's now it's been stolen. Way before.
Think about
pretty
it.
Much.
Back then, the concept of remote control was not something that was in the common zeitgeist.
Yeah.
They didn't have remote control toys like we do. They didn't have remote control actual things like we do. So that's a pretty advanced concept.
It actually is my favorite part of the first Sherlock movie with RDJ in it. Is the twist of that movie was all that stuff that he went through to manipulate that set of governing bodies was he just wanted they had wireless technology. That's all he wanted to steal. That was the main plot of the movie. Like, in the background was he just needed the wireless trigger.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I actually kind of liked that.
Yeah, I liked how the comic version of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen introduced germ or biological warfare in the second one with the War of the Worlds. Again, spoiler alert, that comic's only been out for, 20 years?
20 years?
Long enough to have a bad movie made and get buried.
The second one was beautiful, and I was very disappointed with what they did with the films because they could have been great, but then you turn around and, you got Penny Dreadful, and now you've got the Dark Universe. It's all the same stuff because those characters are all public domain now. You can do anything with them you want.
Right.
But anyway.
By the way, my favorite thing out of the 1949 Batman serial, they don't have a Batmobile, of course, and they actually do. They are thoughtful enough to hang a lantern for us. At some point, Batman and Robin are driving, and they pull over the side of the road to talk to Vicky Vale, and she says, "By the way, Does Bruce Wayne know that you're driving his car?
That's so great.
That's good.
And Batman's response is, of course, he's a close personal friend.
Of course.
Of course. That's beautiful. Well,
Yeah.
a little wink and a nod to how ridiculous it all is.
Gorgeous, ridiculous cereal. It's one of my favorites. I watched it.
I think it was little jokes
Over and
like
over
that that
again.
finally got us to 66, though.
Yeah.
Those little
No,
moments.
that's right.
And Steve, this is something you'll have missed out on. Because when I was growing up, like 2 or 3 years old, I had reruns of 66 to look forward to. So for that young, I actually didn't. To me, it felt like they were taking him seriously. I was like, "Oh, Batman's amazing! Look at him beating people up." That was like 2 years old. That all looked completely legit to me.
Right.
And then you go back and watch it a few years later. Oh, they're just being funny. But that was still fun. That was good. It was good.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting because at the time, and you don't get this when you watch it on video, is if I remember correctly, it was Wednesday and Thursday night. So they would do the first show on Wednesday, and then it would end with a cliffhanger, and then you had to come back the next night. And no, I don't think any television show before or really since has had a format like that, except maybe American Idol or something, where you have to come back the next day to see what happened.
At this point, no one would bet 2 good blocks of television on one property.
Right.
You could not
right.
talk an executive into doing it. Like hanging them over a volcano would not convince them to do that.
And you had to be in front of the TV because there was no delayed viewing. If you missed it, you missed it. Hope to catch it in summer repeats.
Yeah.
But the other cool thing about it was my parents loved the humor, and I loved the whole Batman and fighting, the Joker and all this stuff. And so it was something that the whole family could watch, and everybody loved it because they'd never seen anything like it. It got old pretty quick. I don't know how many. Do you guys know how many years it went?
3 seasons.
It was 3. I was thinking
seasons,
2.
yeah.
I knew it was 2 or 3.
And I think like each season had a smaller production order than the previous season.
Probably so. And it did get old, but it was still really, really entertaining for the time.
That was
And it
great.
something
Especially
you'd
in
never
the
seen
60s.
before. You got to do something people haven't seen.
There was just so much pot happening, and that was probably just the right thing to watch.
Yep.
So, speaking of the 66 series, in light of Adam West's unfortunate demise, they've and also the fact that this last week marked the 20th anniversary of Batman and Robin. I've been seeing a lot of articles out there, a lot of people saying that Batman and Robin is unfairly maligned, that it was the bright knight in the modern times, and that it was something that we're longing for now with Zack Snyder's awful movies. And
No, that movie
Shoemaker even
was
apologized for it.
Well, Schumacher apologized for several things, but we've actually covered this at one point. To his credit, the studio just ruined. He showed up with some pretty fun, gritty ideas that he wanted to do, and the studio was like, okay. Well, here's the toys we've already made. So,
Yeah.
And I'm serious. They handed him toys that were already in production and said, so these have to be in the movie, and it doesn't sound like any of that stuff you were talking about is going to work, so come up with something else.
Wow.
And I feel like the studio was constantly pushing from Batman Returns and McDonald's going, wait, what?
Yeah.
To I feel like they were
And now I feel
constantly
bad.
pushing
I wanted
for
those
humor in
Happy
the
Meals and
movies.
those stupid toys. I contributed to this problem.
Yeah.
Yep. I have almost the entire run of Batman and Robin action figures because, damn it, I needed a Bane.
Yeah.
And they weren't making any other figures at the time.
Yeah.
Makes me feel better about Shoemaker, though, because I really was angry with him for what he did. And to find out that it was studio interference, which sounds like they haven't completely learned their lesson.
They never will.
No, of course
until
not.
recently.
Yeah,
It does make me feel a little bit better.
That is an absolute. I think the Hollywood sign will go away before executives stop fucking things up.
Yeah. What kills me is
Like
the
San
thing that
Andreas
gets the most
Fault
press.
has a better chance at getting that stopped than anything else, really.
Yeah.
It kills me that the thing that gets the most press out of Batman and Robin is the bat nipples, which is something that was introduced in Batman Forever, which was
Right.
also Joel Schumacher, and they had the design, and he went, "Oh, that looks cool." Well, no, it doesn't, but You know,
I mean, you can forgive bad tastes every now and then, but what Schumacher did though that was a real problem was the crotch scenes. Everyone who got suited up had to have a full shot of the crotch, the ass, and the nipple area.
Yeah.
Well, I remember.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Burt Ward had the same problem. They had to adjust his costume because apparently his package was oversized. And
I heard about that.
And they got notes from the network on that.
Yeah, but they were trying to get that out of the frame.
Right.
He says they were like giving him pills to shrink it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard him.
He's like,
I heard him say that. Oh, what in the hell pills were they giving him? I'm pretty well versed in this stuff, and when I heard him say that, I was like, "What in God's name were they giving that poor guy?"
I don't.
Unless they were giving him estrogen or something.
Maybe they might have actually been trying to give him like hormone replacement, but even then, you're just going to get a squeaky sounding stories.
If you listen to some of his other stories, it didn't seem to deter him at all in his life.
No.
What was the line? You got to be good to you got. What was the line? You got to be good to your fans.
Oh yeah. And he was a teeny bopper. He was on all those little the monthly mags with all the
he bopped some
the
teenies.
Osmonds and whatevers. Yeah, he definitely bopped some teenies.
What
the hell were we talking about?
Great question. I don't know.
We started talking about Burt Ward's penis, and we just lost our train of thought.
Well, we have a section called Bat Wieners for exactly this thing.
Yeah, as as many people have in their lives.
I forget how we started that too. I think it was like maybe that was why the underwear was on the outside. It was like when you encounter a criminal in an alley, there's just that split second where they have to look at your crotch and acknowledge like, why is his underwear on the outside? And that's just enough time for Batman to get the upper hand.
Yeah.
That's great.
That was like our version of the Dark Knight Returns, where he says like, "This is why I wear the yellow. So they'll shoot me on where my Kevlar is and stuff."
Right.
But knowing us, we turned that towards the penis and focused there.
I'm not certain it was that intelligent, honestly. I'd have to go back and listen to it.
I don't even remember where to listen at this point.
I have no idea where
it's a fine thought. It just I don't know where it came from anymore.
Well,
if we even did it.
It evolved into Bat Wieners and Flipper Hands, and then devolved back to Bat Wieners.
Yeah, everyone forgot about Michael Shannon's ridiculous Flipper Hands.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably for the best.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, I bought Batman Forever was about to come out, and of course these were the grand days before internet spoiled everything for us, and we've been following news for years leading up. And I saw, like, how they have they still have them, the magazines in the stores that, like, look, the official guide. And I'm like, why are you still here? But back then, I was like, holy shit.
Right.
And I got this Batman Forever magazine, and Schumacher's in it talking about the nipples on the costume, and how it's like, how he wanted them to look like, in the tradition of the old, like, Greek athletes. And when I saw that in the theater of the close-up crotch shots and everything, which were, by the way, in Batman Forever, everyone... loads it on Batman and Robin.
I don't remember it being that up front.
No, because we were all so happy that Penguin wasn't biting a person's nose off.
Yes, or threatening to blow up the crotches of children.
Or kidnapping children.
Yeah.
With that weird creep from Ghost. Anyway. But yeah, that's where he was heading. Like, he wanted to be this, like... And I think he was really into the 66 series as well. So that... what he was going to do. He was going to do a version of his own, like, I don't know, erotic 1966 Batman. That's what he was doing.
Yeah.
He wanted it to be darker, and the studio pushed away from that in Forever.
He wanted to pull in the previous movies and really make it make sense, too. That even the recasting, he had some ideas for how to kind of write that in where it made sense, but all of that got pushed out. And infamously, he's quoted as having walked around the set going, "Remember, guys, we're making a cartoon." And
wow.
It turns out what he actually was, that was usually what happened when he got more notes from the studio, and they said, like, "Oh, you need a little lighter. And he's, at this point, just running around being sarcastic and I don't know, a little bitchy about it. Like, that was just him kind of admitting defeat. Like, screw it, guys. Apparently we're making a fucking cartoon. I don't know. Nipples look fine. Whatever. They should... hockey players, I guess we'll give him hockey players to fight with. That'll work, right?
Yeah. I think if they had let him off the hook, he might have. I mean, sure, there might have been nipples. There might have been.
We may never have been spared that tragedy, but
I think we would have gotten something closer to the noir scenes in the number 23,
Yeah, probably.
which is a Schumacher film.
So
Anyway.
it's outside of studio interference. I'm not sure Schumacher wouldn't have still gotten himself in trouble and been banished to the history books as the guy who fucked over Batman for several years.
Yeah.
But we definitely would have gotten something not that bad.
Yeah, but in response to any of the any of the articles claiming that is, the unsung masterpiece, go screw yourself.
It's just unsung for a reason.
That plot, I mean, even if you accept all of the puns, which I usually will, happily. Have you listened to the show?
Yeah.
But, I'll accept the puns, but that plot didn't make any sense.
I think it's a train wreck, an absolute train wreck.
After our Squadcast crossover, where we reviewed Batman and Robin, I got a lot of flack for saying that Batman and Robin was a better movie than Dark Knight Rises. No, it was a better Batman movie than Dark Knight Rises. It wasn't a better movie. They're both equally shit as far as the plot is concerned.
Oh, that was my other.
The plot was my other.
Here was my other major concern with Dark Knight Rises. I forgot to mention this one because it wasn't all about Batman. There was a major Gordon one for me.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
With Gordon, if I pop 3 shots, I think it was 3 shots. Well, no, he got at least popped once. Anyway, if I shoot a guy in the stomach and throw him into a sewer line, I say minimally sepsis, and also minimally he's probably not going to be allowed to take any work calls at the office or at the hospital. And my guess was he's on so many freaking antibacterials and just drugs in general that he wouldn't even make sense. I don't think he could form a thought.
You're talking about someone that gets multiply gut shot? That's
and then thrown into a sewer. Well, you can't discount the thrown into a sewer part. I feel like that's going to be really key for an open wound.
Yeah, the gut shot, you're going to be septic most likely anyway because you're opening up bacteria that are in the intestines that are supposed to stay in the intestines and not be anywhere. That's the one place where the GI tract where our body can handle bacteria, also the skin, and not be a problem. But when you get shot in the gut, it opens all that up. The intestinal contents spill out, and you'll get peritonitis or inflammation of the lining of the abdomen. And then, yes, now let's throw you into a sewer and have all of that seep in. And by the way, just a fun fact, did you guys know that sewer water is 99% pure water? It's that 1% that really screws you up. So just something that's a little factoid people don't know. And
see,
even if it was 98%
I will remember that though,
water.
Because it's going to be like if I ever, for any reason, end up falling into a sewer, as I fall, I'm going to be remembering that. Steve said it was 91% good down here.
Just reminded me of the Anthony Jeselnik joke. Did you know diarrhea can kill you, even if you drink just a little bit?
He's a funny guy.
Oh, he's solid.
He is.
One of the best pure form joke writers working right now, I think.
Yeah. So speaking of dark Batman or darker approaches to Batman, I read that, and you guys may have said this as well, that Matt Reeves is talking about using Hitchcock as one of his influences in doing this Batman movie. Very excited to see that.
Yeah.
Very excited to see that.
Yeah.
And, a smaller Batman story where he is the world's greatest detective, but it has a very dark and suspenseful impact on him and his life or the people around him. I can live with that. It doesn't have to be Batman saving the world or even saving Gotham from a nuclear attack or from some enraging gas or anything like that. Just I could live with a smaller film, and I'd like to see that. To be honest with you, just something very suspenseful that surprises me.
Something like the not quite as far as I think it's the Zeppo. I think is the title of the Buffy episode where it's all about God, I can't remember his name right now. Help me out, man.
Xander.
Thank you. It's all about him.
There's a full-fledged end of the season type apocalypse going on in the episode, but we never see it.
Yeah, it's a quiet episode about Xander, and then just every now and then in the background you'll see one of the characters' shirts half destroyed and they're about to die or something like that. But something like that, a smaller film like what you're saying, I think it'd be awesome if you just had if it was a Batman film about him being a detective and it's just like one murder, like just one little girl getting murdered or something like that. And that's the mystery he's trying to solve the entire time.
Yep.
And like 2 or 3 times during the film, like he gets a call like, Joker's out, crap. And then like, you don't even really see him wrap it up. You just see him like throw Jared Leto back into a pen and then go back to trying to solve the little
And go back to
mysteries
the thing. Yeah. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, I would too.
That
And I think they should.
Matt Reeves. I think he is somebody that he's going to do a great job with this. I think his work on the apes stuff, and I loved Cloverfield as well, so I think he's going to do a great job.
Me and Dave had to say the same thing regarding the apes films. The trailers look great, but we haven't seen them.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should see them. They're actually very good.
I don't think I've ever had anything against it. It's just never quite come to fruition.
To make a movie where half of your cast doesn't speak and they speak in sign language, that takes balls to make a movie
that is good.
that. You know?
That is good. I mean, so like one of my favorite animated films of all time will be WALL-E because the first half of it is a silent film.
Right.
Love it.
Yeah, I love stuff like that.
You get 2 words the entire first half of that movie. WALL-E, Eva.
Yep.
That's it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, I really need to carve out some time this summer and catch up on some Matt Reeves stuff to see what kind of tone I'm looking for.
See what you're in for?
I really dig the Hitchcock. Yeah, but I dig the Hitchcock statement a lot.
Yeah.
God, but yeah, can you imagine if they actually did that? And you know, there's also a rumor going around right now that from Humberto Gonzalez over at the Wrap, I suppose now, but he's saying that Warner Brothers is looking to do like 3 or 4 different movies a year. And how much fun would it be if they did a Batman movie, if they did that, where they said, okay, here's $50 million. Go make a low-key detective Batman story while we're working on Justice League 2. That would be amazing.
That would be cool.
I'd love it if Batman had showed up in 4 different movies and he's still trying to solve that one little girl's murder or something.
That would be interesting.
That'd be amazing. Like he just shows up every now and then in the we'll assume the Justice League gets a headquarters at some point. Like you go to the Justice League Part 2 and he's just there for like 5 minutes doing some research on the computer and then he bolts.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
we could
to
really
be
use
fair,
you
we
for
all
this.
know
The little
that
girl needs me more. Okay.
like Batman is the most popular character in the DC universe. Period.
Yeah.
You could do like every 3 years, do like a big Batman movie. And then, like, just have like 1 or 2 little ones in there, like a TV show in theaters.
Yeah.
Like, I think that'd be amazing.
That'd be fantastic.
Well, and Deadpool proved yet again that it's you just can't throw dollars at something.
You don't have to,
or you don't have to just throw dollars at something. That's what I meant to say. Yeah,
and especially with Deadpool getting to joke about his own production within the course of his movie. That was brilliant.
Yeah. Well, I forgot my guns. Well, we couldn't afford to shoot all those guns, so we're just going to fight with our fists and stuff.
It's funny how
make it into a funny thing.
I think he said like it's funny how I don't get to go in the mansion. It's almost like we couldn't afford anything but the front.
Right.
Or the other one later was like, "There's all these X-Men in this whole mansion. It's just you two, huh? That's all we could."
Right. And with Sinead O'Connor, but they, I think the budget for that was $59 million, which was brilliant. That they were able to make a movie that looked that good for that much money, but also that they just said, look, we're not 100% sure about this, so let's just make it cheap, and then we don't have to do so much to make your money back. When you spend $250 million on a movie, if it hits short of $1 billion, now that's when people start saying, oh, it was a financial disaster, which it wasn't.
You can't just make your money back on $250 and be happy. Somebody goes home jobless.
Right. Yeah, they should have gone like the 50 mil route with Suicide Squad.
Oh, that would have been the best possible course of action, I think. And you know how hard, like Ryan Reynolds specifically fought to pull the budget down. They tried to give him more money, and he told them to screw themselves.
Wow.
Yeah. Like, he didn't want to make it. It was very astute of him, I thought. But he specifically wanted it to be that, and he knew if he had too much money in there, too many people would be in there, and he couldn't make the movie the way he thought it should be made. So
yeah.
And God, he'd been trying to play that character for 10 years. I still maintain the idea that like he got ripped to do the Blade movies. That's when he started getting in shape. And I think he had the idea that he wanted to play Deadpool, and that's the only reason he was in shape. I think he was at the gym every day going, one day I'm going to play Wade,
Yeah, I think he loves comic books. I think he jumped at the chance to play Hannibal King in the One Blade movie. I thought, and they were talking about doing another. They were talking about doing a Hannibal King spinoff series for a long time. before he actually got Deadpool in X-Men Origins.
Yeah.
Of course, that was a shit show.
Oh yeah. And you know how he got roped into that? Did you ever read that?
Maybe someday. Maybe at one point I did.
I forget how they leveraged him, but the studio wanted to include Deadpool, and they wanted him to play it, and he was telling them like, "No, I'm not. No, this is a terrible role. Are you kidding me?" And they literally told him, "We still own Deadpool. We're going to continue to own Deadpool. If you ever want to make the movie you're going to play this character in this film." Fuck. So he went in there.
Wow,
and
it went back that far.
Yeah. He knew he wanted to play it then, but they knew he wanted to play it then, so they used it against him to get him into the Wolverine movie.
Wow.
Rough, huh?
That is rough, but it turned out okay. Now it'll be interesting to see if they can, repeat the success of the first one with the second one. I'm really rooting for them.
Oh, so badly.
I mean, Brolin's been showing up as Cable, getting more and more into I think it's going to be good. Like, it looks good.
I hated to see the director leave. That was the only thing that kind of scared me. It was like him and Reynolds weren't getting along as far as where they wanted to take the next movie.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, all of the funny little vignettes and stuff that, as much as I like Tim Miller and I like what I've seen him do, when you look at the little vignettes and stuff that they've done with just Ryan Reynolds, obviously Tim Miller wasn't involved.
Yeah, just his little viral
and
stunts.
read Ryan Reynolds' tweets, for God's sake. Like, he is Deadpool. Let's do this. Screw Tim Miller. I think Ryan Reynolds has got this as long as he's in charge overall of the character. I think it'll be great. He
probably has one of my favorite tweets of all time. And I don't read many, so this isn't a big pull to get things out of. But still, something along the lines of, I swear to God, everyone in this town is so afraid of gluten, you could rob a liquor store with a bagel. That's one of those where I read it and I actually just had to clap out loud. Like, oh, that's fantastic. Good work.
All right, so we've got about 20 minutes before my heart out. Do you guys have anything else?
I got one general medical question. I think most of my Dark Knight Rises concerns. I like the conversion thing. That's the best interpretation I've ever seen. Actually, is probably that conversion disorder explanation. If I ever go back and watch that movie, I'm going to incorporate it in internally for myself. Yeah, to make it a better viewing. Do you agree with me though that Gordon's just not? He's not showing up to work the next day, even to spout instructions from the hospital bed?
No, that's not happening.
Yeah.
Well, to like the Batman the Animated Series, a cartoon. Now, I know I'll get flack for saying a cartoon about Batman the Animated Series, but hear me out. They had Jimmy the Jazz Man shoot Gordon once, and he was on life support.
Because, lo and behold, it only takes one.
Much more likely. But in a universe where they've got a magical knee brace, maybe they had some magical antibiotic and surgical techniques that could do that. But, the thing that drives me crazy about medicine in films, for example, the proverbial code blue. When someone's heart stops, we do chest compressions, we shock them, we put a tube down their throat, we put them in the ICU. And the odds that even an 18-year-old who goes through that will survive is right around 15%. But you look at a movie like The Abyss, where Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio is on a submarine with Ed Harris, and they only have one suit, and they got to go to the other submarine. She says, just resuscitate me on the other side. Well, it sounds easy. So she drowns, she dies, she gets to the other submarine, he starts pounding on her chest, and, breathe, damn you, and then she's, and all of a sudden she starts breathing, and then she's running around, running away from aliens the rest of the movie. It does not happen that way.
Yeah.
It never happens that way. She would have been in ICU for at least a week if she survived. And so, yeah, that's
then measuring
the kind of
how much brain damage from the time she was done.
Right. Well,
only got,
presumably
like 3
the
to 5
water was
minutes?
cold, and well, if you're hypothermic, you can go a lot longer. There have been kids who have lived 45 minutes they've fallen through the ice and are severely hypothermic and can go 45 minutes, maybe even longer, in what we would call a state of suspended animation, but they're just able to be resuscitated. They've got a much smaller body mass, so they get colder faster than adults would, and you can resuscitate them, and they're fine. But that's obviously not the norm.
Yeah. No one ever wakes up and actually makes out with the lifeguard that saved their life or something, right?
No. Well, I mean, look. If you just swallowed some water and your heart didn't stop, then yes. If you're just choking, and then yeah, you could kiss the lifeguard. But if your heart actually stopped and they had to do chest compressions and shock you and intubate you, then yeah, you're not kissing anybody for a while.
Gotcha.
The way you reversed on that reaction almost felt like you were going to be like, no, well, there's some freaks.
Well, that's true. There are some freaks. But.
Yeah. There's not
just really
opening
gets
to
off on
hospitals
drowning,
for a good reason. You can't just wander around the halls.
It's one of my favorite lines from the original Christopher Reeve Superman when Larry Hagman sees Valerie Perrine laid out, and he says, well, I think the first thing we should do is a vigorous chest massage. I'll use that one. I use that all the time. You know, if some woman says, well, what do you think would help me? I'll say, well, first, a vigorous chest massage is in order.
Doctor, I was asking about my foot. I know. Don't question me.
Right, exactly.
I'm the doctor here, okay? You came to see
Who's
me.
got the MD after their name?
Right. You schedule an appointment, the whole thing. Just trust me.
Step aside, man.
Yeah. I have a couple of very general medical-based questions, I guess. If you're up for a couple more kind of,
Sure.
I don't know, really vague ones. So,
I've already ruined your show. You know, we're an hour and 37 in, and I know people are just, when are they going to get rid of this guy? But I have really enjoyed this, and I really appreciate it.
Nah.
I mean, yeah, I hope it's been a fun conversation. But I can invite anyone to go ahead and click next. We'll have a news episode coming. If you don't want to go, go. I mean, but you don't have to be here. But from a medical standpoint, and this is going to be such a vague question that if you don't think of somebody and like later, if you're like, oh, that's a better answer, you know, don't worry about it.
Yeah,
But
yeah, sure.
From a medical standpoint, your least and most favorite powers, as in the one that's the most ridiculous that you can think of, that has no basis in anything but fantasy, and one that actually might be somewhat close to like sound.
Oh,
What if the most ridiculous is his favorite, though, Jason?
That can actually be the same thing. Favorite is a different conversation.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
All right.
Wow. I wish you'd give me a heads up on that because I could have come up with something way more interesting.
yeah, I didn't think about it until about halfway
Right?
through. So sorry.
How did in Nightfall, how did Bruce Wayne or Batman get his legs back? Wasn't there a woman that had like some magical healing powers or something?
Yeah, that's pretty much.
Yes.
That's basically it.
Yeah. So
Dr. Consolving, yeah.
yeah, that's the most prosaic superpower that you could have. I feel like I kind of have that. I have an ability to put my hands where people are hurting, and I can almost every time say, does it hurt right here? And I'm 100% right.
Right,
So,
yeah.
yeah, and that's just 40 years of experience. Really, it's not really a superpower. There's nothing supernatural about it. But
Right.
that would be the most sort of
Achievable,
down-to-earth superpower somebody could have, is some sort of healing power. And then, I always come back to Green Lantern. Flying around in space with a ring that somehow, what energy? There's no energy that
they
allows
created
you to
another
do that.
branch of physics for that one too.
Right. Well, and then when you're, and this is the problem I'm always going to have with Green Lantern on the screen, is it looks cool in a comic book, but when you have a ring that shoots out this green light and it turns into a fist and socks somebody in the jaw.
Yeah.
That's like the most ridiculous thing you can imagine.
See,
and I'm really excited to see if it happens, how Zack Snyder, if there's a Green Lantern cameo in this film, I have an idea how you could do it the same way that the Dark Knight Returns. I'm having another senior moment. The artist and the writer of that.
Miller.
Frank Miller.
Frank Miller, thank you. Okay, sorry. This is what happens when you're 61 and you've drunk 2 beers while you're doing a show with some guys that you admire but you don't know that well. And
That's what happens when we're 32.
You remember how he introduced Superman in that? It was just this sort of red and yellow beam of light. That's how fast he was moving and just how powerful he was.
Yeah.
When Batman said, "Oh no, not him, not him," and you would just see this. That's the only way they can do it with Green Lantern. And it has to be this beautiful emerald green that just comes out of nowhere, that just exudes power. That's, to me, the only way you could do a real Green Lantern, because otherwise it's ridiculous. Even though, absolutely, growing up, my favorite comic book was Green Lantern. I just loved the idea that you could have a ring that would just basically do anything you wanted it to.
Or you could just will it into constructs if you wanted to.
Yes.
The only way I think it works if you do it, especially if you have the constructs be actual objects, like noticeable objects, especially like the punching glove or whatever. Kyle Rayner. I think you have to have Kyle Rayner, and you have to have it. He's just the comedy relief, but he's also one of the most powerful people on the planet in all of the planets, really, because he has access to this super powerful ring. But I like the younger, goofier version of him more. And to me, it makes sense that he pulls out like a boxing glove and walks somebody on the side of the head.
That does make sense. Sort of like Teenage Spider-Man,
a little bit,
making weird things out of his webbing and stuff.
Yeah,
I could see that.
Well, the boxing glove was really more of a Hal Jordan conceit.
It was, and he was.
Rayner was a comic book artist, so he would create these like ridiculously complicated late 90s comic book constructs. Whereas
and that's I say you pull in Kyle Rayner and you go full throttle with that. You explain that he's an artist by trade, and then you show it.
Yeah.
Alex Ross always draws a good Green Lantern. You got to use that as your.
Alex Ross draws a good every damn thing.
He does. No, there's no question about that.
Yeah,
it's really true.
Yeah,
I'm looking at one right now, and it's incredible. I mean, just the power, exuding from this ring, and Hal Jordan. I'm hoping it's Hal Jordan because he was always my Green Lantern. Just oh god, I'm really excited about it, but I have a lot of trepidation about it as well.
I wouldn't blame you. I mean,
I always really liked his old Hal Jordan from Kingdom Come, just kind of sitting in his Emerald Fortress above the earth.
Yeah.
God, that book. It's every time someone brings it up, I just like sigh with, oh God, that book. And his version of how Superman operates is one of my favorite too, because like when he's recruiting, when Superman gets back in the game and he starts recruiting, I forget where he shows up to one of these clubs where it's just a bunch of ne'er-do-wells with superpowers clubbing it up all night. Walks right in and then gives him the little, the Boy Scout speech. Walks right out, and there's this one. I think it was a little young lady who says, like, "I've never met him before, but I get it now. I would follow him to hell."
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I always love that line.
The other way to do Green Lantern, of course, is to go lighter and just do it as a buddy cop thing, and that's what I've heard. That's one of the concepts that they've thought about, is just doing it as a buddy cop with people with these insanely overpowered rings.
Yeah.
And I'd be okay with that too. I just want it to be good. I was pretty disappointed with the Ryan Reynolds film, and that wasn't his fault. I thought he was fine, but just
no, he did a typically charming performance. It's Ryan Reynolds. He's always going to be at least funny and definitely charming, and then probably going to get you emotional at some point. I mean, there are pieces of Deadpool that are worth shedding a tear for.
Yeah, it wasn't tossable. It wasn't tossable to me. I could have dealt with a sequel. I was excited to see that fold into the upcoming Man of Steel and everything, and then they just kind of trashed it. And I went, oh, well, okay.
Yeah, I could have kept it just fine. And the way I hear it, though, is like Berlanti had a decent script at some point, and then when it was another one, was more like the studio messed with it too much, and then that's what we got.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those kids at WB really know what they're doing, don't they?
What a surprise.
Yeah.
The studio screwed it up.
Right.
It's become a mantra.
It only takes one bad apple in there with too many notes, and who doesn't understand why you bought the script to begin with, but now it's in his hands, and they all want to.
You remember what I said about sewer water?
Yeah.
Yeah, the 1%.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah, Warner Brothers is the Ruxin of movie studios. They just tinker too damn much.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I mean, I was reading.
Sorry, that's a League reference.
I was reading a book recently from. It's Thomas Lennon and Ben Garrett wrote an awesome book about like kind of insider Hollywood stuff. Just hilarious too. But one of the things they mentioned in there was like to get a good script and turn it into a shit movie really only takes one idiot. And
Yeah.
They said, notice we didn't say harmless idiot, because in Hollywood there's no such thing.
Wow.
He said actually though, like for every 20 idiots you run into in Hollywood, and that's easy to do, you're only going to run into maybe one person who's actually evil. Like most of them they aren't truly mustache twirling villains.
Yeah, they're
just
stupid.
dumb, just incompetent people, or at least out of, maybe they're good in this context, but they get put in the wrong one, and suddenly they don't know how this movie works, and they just throw in stuff. And I did love this part in the book. He talks about he cannot count how many times he's walked into a meeting to get notes and realized about halfway through that the person giving him notes had never read the script.
It's frightening.
Yeah, it was a nice little insider look, because I didn't realize just like I've wondered how crazy it was, and then I read theirs and was like, oh, it's just as bad as I thought. Okay, good. It's amazing a good movie ever gets made at that point, to be honest.
It is. Well, it's amazing that any human is ever born normal. If you ever learn about the process of reproduction, there's so many things that can go wrong, and there's so many checks and balances. It is really miraculous that any of us are born normal.
That sounds right.
It will drive you crazy if you think about it too much.
Yeah.
But anyway, so if that's true, imagine how easy it would be to just screw up a movie, and that is kind of frightening.
Yeah,
because we've got a whole lot of movies coming up that we're all looking forward to, and I'm just hoping that one idiot.
A lot of them are
stays away
tentpole
from
movies where everyone wants to get in and have their say on it too. And
Yep.
I mean, there's not a lot of people that would turn down the chance to take a swipe at the Justice League script just because it's the Justice League movie. Like, who wouldn't want to just take a look and see if they could maybe improve it? And then that doesn't mean you're qualified to write a Justice League movie. But
waiting for that movie since I was 10 years old.
Right.
So.
And there are people that are
I'm so pumped.
I'm gonna feel really bad for just everyone if the movie does suck, and we just have to kind of like sigh and go, well, I guess we'll just focus on this
always
Wonder Woman franchise.
too.
Yeah,
right.
I learned at a young age to accept animation as live action.
Yeah,
and I feel like I've already had my Batman and my Justice League with the Paul Dini, Bruce Timm verse.
Yeah.
Anything else is icing on the cake
just
in
gravy.
a lot of ways. Yeah. So I mean,
that's a good way to think.
To the point where I'm like, Jared Leto's not Mark Hamill. It's actively affecting my feelings about the new stuff. Like, that's not real.
Yeah.
Like, none of it's real, Dave.
Yeah. It's hard to pull yourself away. Especially like we grew up watching those, every afternoon, get home and sit 4 feet from the television and watch Batman. Like that was ingrained in us. So, yeah, it's hard not to compare everything we see to BTS and its cohorts.
I mean, none of that was even my first. Like, my first was probably Keaton and then Adam West.
No, my first was definitely Adam West, but it was clear to me even at a young age that the animated series was legitimately good. It wasn't just something I was watching because I was a kid. It was clear that this was good television.
And that's something, being my age, I've never seen a single episode of that. And that's just because when it came out, I was either in medical school or I was practicing and had kids, and we just never got there. So that's something that's on my list of things to do because I've heard nothing but great things about it. It's absolutely
something you should watch.
You're just gonna be so happy. I mean, as long as animation as a format doesn't in any way bewilder you, you're gonna be great.
No, I'm cool with it.
So,
and you've made a lot of cracks about being older, but I think Batman the Animated Series, I think that's going to help you out being older because a lot of the pastiche of the show, a lot of the aesthetic of the show is geared more toward old noir films.
Yeah. Really,
and a lot of the pacing of it is geared towards older films, and that's one of the things I love about it.
Okay,
it was not made for
I've got to watch it.
A bunch of ADD kids with.
You're not going to watch it? Is that what you said?
No, I said I am going to watch it. I can't wait to watch it.
Okay.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I may start tonight.
The part that's going to mess with you though is you're going to have like if you're going to finish that and then it's going to be like, all right, cool. Well, I guess I'm done with that. Oh wait, there's Superman the Animated Series that I should have been watching in conjunction with this. Actually, now that I think
right,
like,
Teen Titans.
Yeah, there's gonna
Teen Titans is not involved in that actually.
But it's gonna there's you basically need to get a viewer's guide to that and make sure you refer to it before or just ask Dave.
Well, I kind of on you guys for that. Yeah.
He's got it memorized.
I'll check in with you.
Like I can get you close, but David just has to correct me twice anyway. So Just cut to the chase. Yes, Dave.
Yeah.
He is a veritable encyclopedia of this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
I'll check in with you. Let me watch the first few episodes, and then I'll check in with you and let me know which direction to go in next.
And of course, I would advise give it a couple of episodes, like 3 or 4 episodes, maybe 5, for them to really get the characters down, because the voices are a little weird.
Yeah.
As anything is. They're kind of not quite there, but
I mean,
even those are pretty phenomenal.
Especially if you get all the way to Harley Quinn, you've made it into the show's real run.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Well, that's pretty early on. What was it? Joker's favorite?
I was trying to.
Yeah.
Well, there was a proto version.
Oh my
of
God!
an early
the
episode.
the show titles? Holy moly!
Yeah,
That's right.
That's amazing.
Well, look, animated series and Paul Dini, like, these cats created the origins for a lot of these characters. And
Right. Mr. Freeze was
Mr.
a
Freeze was
throwaway.
nothing but a villain before. He was just a guy who was like, like we had that great bit from the 66 series where he's like, poor devil. Like, he's his body, he has to be in a refrigerated suit, and his body is kept at a constant 50 degrees below zero.
Yeah.
And then he's like, no wonder his mind is warped. That was the explanation.
That was it. No, when you finally get to Paul Dini's version of it, I always love this little anecdote from Dini where he says he knew he'd written a good episode because he left his little office just in tears. And apparently that happens to him a lot. His wife will come over and be like, "Is everything okay? What's wrong?" He's like, "I was just working on an episode. It's gonna be really good."
Wow.
He actually writes himself into tears sometimes.
Wow, that's awesome. His wife's a magician too. I know that.
Oh, is she?
Do you guys ever go to? Yeah, she does magic. Do you guys ever go to Dragon Con or anything like that?
No, we're still trying to figure out if we can.
We haven't. Yeah.
I
used to.
I'm short on funds after all my me and my wife's medical expenses this crazy little summer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was just curious because, I met so many comic book creators at Dragon Con. It's such a great place to just walk around. Like Matt Wagner, I don't know if you remember him. He did Grendel and Mage, and he did a really neat Grendel/Batman crossover. It was one of my favorites back in the day. And you can walk around and meet these guys. And I know Paul Dini's been at Dragon Con. That's what made me think of it.
Yeah, I'd love to just go shake that guy's hand and say thanks, man. It's just one of those people that he did a lot.
Well, if you guys are ever
I
going to
always have
go,
a great
hell,
fear.
I'll go.
Well, yeah, if we can ever actually get out there, we'll let you know.
Okay.
I always have a great fear of meeting my heroes. I don't want any kind of Bruce Willis, I don't want to go, hey, Paul Dini, I love your stuff. And he's just like, screw you, fanboy.
Right.
Oh.
Your heroes mostly can only disappoint you. That is true.
That is the problem with
But every once in a while, it's really worth it. And someday, if we're just sitting around, drinking an adult beverage, I'll tell you my my encounter with the Star Wars actors at Dragon Con. And it's really, really horrible. Okay, well, anyway, David Prowse, right? I'll tell you this one. David Prowse is sitting at the table, and there's nobody around, and he's talking to this guy, and he starts talking to me, and he starts telling me this story, right? And he's telling this story, yes, and I went to this place, and this man told me, and I'm just laughing, and that's that's awesome. And about 5 minutes into this, with me reacting to everything he's saying like he's talking to me, I realize he has strabismus, which is where one of his eyes points straight forward and the other one points to the right, and the other eye was looking right at me. And he wasn't talking to me. He was talking to this guy standing to my right, and I was the biggest idiot. But anyway,
That's fantastic.
Just a little medical thing. Strabismus, there you go. So,
what's great about that is with him not reacting, that means that you're not the first.
Right.
That's
right.
like, he just
wasn't
ignored
like,
you.
Mate, I'm not talking to you.
Another one of those guys.
Yep, another one of those guys talking into my bad eye.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, I thought it's embarrassing to think somebody's like talking to you and they're on the phone. That's way past.
Yeah.
That's another level.
But I've met a few of my heroes, and very few of them have disappointed me. So I think it's okay. Don't worry about it. I think Paul Dini would be an awesome person to meet.
That would be good.
Yeah. Yeah, there is the off chance that that person would be a dick in a way that made me love them more. Like, if he was just like, I don't even know. I don't have an example in my head, but if, like, he was just a dick to me, I'm like, that is perfect!
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
if you said, your work meant so much to me, and he just said, who gives a shit, and walked away, that would be an awesome way to go out.
Yeah.
With this
like,
guy.
if Bob Dylan did that to me, I would be like,
That's
oh my
so
God,
Dylan.
that is perfect. Yeah. That is so perfect. Yes.
Let me just tell you real quick my other Dragon Con story. This hasn't got a great middle and an end, but just the opportunities at a place like that. Back when the last time I went, of course, I saw the Misfits 3 years in a row. But my friend Dwayne, who runs a comic book shop called Dwayne's World in a place called Kingsport, Tennessee, it's a superstore comic book shop. I mean, it's like Walmart in there. It's actually the most beautiful place you've ever seen. If y'all are ever in this area, I've got to take you there. But he and I went, and for $25, you could go to this awards dinner. It was the Dragon Con awards dinner, right? And Kurt Busiek was there. He was up on the dais, and that was cool because I love Astro City. But guess who's sitting at my table? Anthony Daniels. And at my table, to the point where we talked so long, and he was such an engaging, wonderful guy. And if people don't know, that's the guy that plays C-3PO in the Star Wars movies.
Right.
The next day, when I'm walking through the through the exhibition hall, Anthony Daniels sees me and goes, "Oh, Steve, hello," and is waving. Now, when is that ever going to happen? Guess who was sitting next in the table next to me? Was Ray Bradbury, the author of Martian Chronicles, I was a huge fan of his since I was a kid. Ray Harryhausen, who did the animation for the Sinbad movies and stuff, and Forrest Ackerman, which you get a prize if you know who that is, but he was the publisher of Famous Monsters of Film, all at the table next to us. So Dragon Con and other conventions like that are an awesome place to just meet and talk to people that we've all been fans of our whole lives. Harlan Ellison, I got to I ran into him in the hall and talked to him for 10 minutes. That was an incredible experience.
Gosh.
So,
that may be a record for him.
It's so much fun. Yeah,
Did he threaten to sue you?
No, he was great. He was awesome. So
He didn't accuse you of stealing any ideas.
No, not at all. Okay. No, he was really wonderful. I talked to him about a short story called "I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream," which apparently he wrote. Was one of the first things
Absolutely,
he ever wrote.
He wrote that. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I did a spoken word thing in college to that and freaked out my professor. So, but yeah,
that's awesome.
It's really cool. So if you guys can go. I don't even wait. You're in Alabama, right? Or one of you is in
right.
Alabama.
We're both in separate parts.
We're
of
both in Alabama. Yeah,
it's not that far to go to Atlanta.
No, we thought about
we
even
probably do this off the air, but we should probably talk. I'd love to meet up with you guys and walk around Dragon Con.
Oh, something more in your neck of the woods is I looked up Heroes and Villains Fan Fest is like July 8th and 9th, and it's pretty much everyone we cover on Arrow, plus David Mazouz and I forget who Butch's real name is, but I guess Butch isn't even his name in the show anymore. But it was everybody there, and in particular, I laughed when I saw they have what they call a Stephen Amell package for like $325. You just specifically get to go in a line where you get pictures with Stephen Amell, and I ran this by my wife, and she just went, "Do I get to go on a date with him?" I said, "Well, I mean, you can ask."
Wow, now that looks good. It's got Melissa Benoist and Michael Rooker.
Yeah, it was a solid.
That's in Nashville.
Yeah, it's a solid one. But yeah, she was only interested if she could actually
I'd go for Rooker alone.
Date Stephen Amell. I don't blame her.
Wow, and they have an archery booth, and you can shoot arrows with Stephen Amell.
That'd be
It's
fantastic.
the craziest damn thing.
I would never do
Oh,
that.
I'd do it in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. Well, actually,
Yeah, it would be his heartbeat because I'd accidentally shoot him in the chest. It'd be his final heartbeat.
the CW would sue you for the rest of your life. I mean,
Yeah.
Oh, they have insurance on him.
oh, probably millions of dollars worth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know you're getting close to your heart out, Dave, and
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you
I'm a
guys
little
for
past it,
having
actually.
me on and just letting me ramble. It's been really fun. I really enjoy your show. I listen every week, and
Thank you again.
Thank you for having me on. It was so much fun.
Yeah, thank
great
you
show.
so much for being on the show, and thanks for having Jason on your show as
Yeah.
well.
I went in and found those gummies. They do work better.
Oh yeah,
Just
there
to
you
follow
go.
up
Yeah,
with you.
we had.
I've heard good things about the gummies.
They sure
Jason
enough,
was
right to bed.
a big part of our last podcast, and you can hear it at drsteve.com, or you can go to iTunes or Stitcher or riotcast.com and just search for Weird Medicine. And yeah, we talked about Jason's crazy heart rhythm. Matter of fact, I named the episode after him. I kept trying to come up with a Batman versus Superman thing, and I just came up with his heart rate was 200 BPM, so it's just called 200 BPM versus Superman. It was stupid. I ran out of time to come up with a very clever title
I loved
for that
it
one,
because it even vaguely implies that I'm the Superman of this character.
That's right. That's
so,
exactly right.
It was entirely flattering.
Yeah, but guys, I listen from time to time. It's a good show. It's a lot of fun, and it's informative as well. And how long have you guys been doing the show?
11 years.
11, 12 years?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
I started in 2007 doing a sort of one-off on the Opie and Anthony channel at SiriusXM, and it was so successful. They just let us do it because I think they thought we were just going to shit the bed. And then it would be funny. It would give them something funny to talk about. But if it was good, then it was, they could take credit for coming up with a good idea. So, or, greenlighting a good idea. So either way, it was a win-win for them. And so we used to do it once a month, and then we were doing it twice a month, and then we started doing weekly on SiriusXM, and then started doing weekly podcasts as well, including we have premium episodes for our premium subscribers. But you can listen for free if you just keep up. We have the last 5 shows are always free. So.
Yeah, that's a pretty standard model these days.
Yeah. Well, and I don't do it to make money. To be perfectly honest with you, I'm doing it to keep my employer from digging too deep into my archives because I've said some crazy crap on my show. At least if they did dig deep, they'd have to pay.
Yeah, I felt deeply about a pseudonym when we started this show. Just because I thought, I'm still young enough that I'm probably going to have to apply for another job at some point in my life. I don't think I don't know that I'm going to retire here necessarily, but
right.
In the end, we
I
opted
thought
for
I
madness.
was going to. I tell you what, when we did our first show, my partner P.A. John and I were looking across the street on 57th Avenue in New York City, going, now which condo do you think we should buy up there? Because we're going to need to buy one, and then we didn't realize. We were going to do the first 5 years for free, and they weren't going to pay us a penny. And then after that, they're going to pay us $150 an episode. So, and if I skip an episode, the second episode because of taxes, I make $28. So, yeah, and we haven't even made back the amount that it cost for us to fly up there and get hotels and meals and stuff for the first show. We've never even made that money back. So yeah, this is not
a long haul,
big money making thing. Yeah,
thankfully our setup is very cheaply achieved. So we're done losing money, I think, on it at least.
Yeah,
we weren't exactly trying to.
You guys do it for the props and because you love it, and that's why
we
I
just
do
wanted to chat.
Just because I love it.
And like we said before, half the reason we started was me and Dave would just be on the phone shooting the shit about this stuff anyway. And we're like, well, what if we just record and see what happens?
Right.
And you know what? Actually, recording it, I think we save time because when it's just me and you, we talk for about 5 hours.
Yeah.
Dude,
It's
I got a
actually
taste
we
of
only
that,
do it for like an hour and a half.
it's a way
hours.
more structured discussion too because we're not just going like willy nilly like, oh, that thing on Gotham, did you see that? Blah, 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 and then jumping
Yeah, David,
right into...
I got a taste of that because when Jason and I were talking about doing this show, we were just going to touch bases real quick just to say, how the format of the show was going to go and how you guys actually record. And I think an hour later we finally hung up and it was 1 a.m. my time.
Well, that's about right. That's about right.
I totally understand.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, we could go on another 3 hours and not run out of stuff to talk about. We might go really deep in the catalog.
Yeah. I mean, there's nearly 80 years worth of material out there to screw around with, and we know enough to be dangerous. So,
yeah. I'll tell you the truth. I enjoyed this episode. I thought it was a lot of fun. I'd love to have you on again.
I'd love to do it again.
Especially get it in the summer while we can.
yeah.
Well, okay.
Yeah, we do our little,
Your
our little
listeners-
one-offs in the summer, so...
Your listeners
we
may
start
tell you
drowning.
different, but I would love to do it. Absolutely.
Well, our listeners have weathered far worse.
Yeah.
Well, I'm at your service.
I had a hell of a lot of fun on this episode, and I hope you guys did too.
We even learned some things.
we learned some stuff. We got edumacated for just a minute. And you can find every episode free. We don't have a premium service. But you can find every episode for free. DCOnscreen.com. We're on iTunes. We're on Stitcher. Giant Size Team Up Network. GiantSizeTeamUp.com for all those awesome shows over there. MCU Cast, Booze and Phasers, and all the others. Guys, we're going to be coming back with DCEU news, some of which we talked briefly about here today. We're going to be talking about DC TV news.
Some big stuff.
Until then, keep some DC on your screen.